Most harm in this world does not come from open enemies. It comes from people who smile while watching for your weakness. From those who don't need to destroy you loudly, only to disturb your balance quietly. Stoicism teaches something uncomfortable but freeing. Not everyone around you wants to see you grounded, steady, or at peace. Some only feel powerful when you react, explain, defend, or doubt yourself. But this video is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. Stoic wisdom does not train you to see threats everywhere. It trains you to stop giving access where access is not earned. To recognize that strength is not proven by confrontation, but by composure, not by domination, but by inner order. Many people believe protection means building thicker walls or fighting harder. Stoicism teaches the opposite. True protection happens when your inner world becomes so stable that manipulation finds nothing to attach to. When provocation cannot activate you, when judgment cannot redirect you, when emotional games no longer reach your core, this is what it means to become too strong to be harmed. Not untouchable because you intimidate others, but because you are no longer available to what weakens you. In this video, we will explore 7 silent Stoic ways to build that kind of strength. Not through aggression, not through revenge, but through clarity, restraint, and disciplined peace. These are not techniques for winning against people. They are principles for withdrawing your energy from chaos and reclaiming authority over your inner life. Stay with Stoic path. You don't need to react faster. You only need to become steadier. If this message resonates with you, take a quiet moment to like and share it with someone who may need steadiness more than advice. And if you are choosing calm strength over constant reaction, subscribe and continue walking the Stoic path with us. Now, let us begin by exploring the first silent Stoic way, how mastering inner stillness becomes the foundation of true strength. Way number 1, emotional mastery. Mastering inner stillness. Most harm does not begin with what someone does to you. It begins with what they manage to pull out of you. In everyday life, this often looks ordinary. A colleague subtly undermines your contribution in a meeting. A family member presses on the same emotional button again and again. Someone online provokes, questions your motives, or misrepresents your words. The situation itself may be small, but the reaction it triggers inside you feels heavy, urgent, and consuming. Stoicism teaches that this is the critical moment, not the moment of offense, but the moment your inner order is disturbed. Epictetus was direct about this. In the Enchiridion, he reminds us that people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. The harm is not in the event, it is in the judgment that follows. When emotional mastery is absent, the pattern is predictable. You feel compelled to explain yourself, to correct the record, to prove your intention. You replay the moment later, crafting better responses you never said. Energy that could have gone into your life is spent maintaining an invisible argument. Over time, this creates exhaustion, resentment, and self-doubt, not because the situation was powerful, but because your emotions were given control. Seneca warned about this in On Anger, describing anger as a temporary madness that promises strength but leaves weakness behind. The Stoics did not see emotional reactivity as honesty or passion. They saw it as a loss of command. When your emotions answer to provocation, someone else is holding the reins. Emotional mastery does not mean suppressing what you feel or becoming cold. It means slowing the moment down, creating a pause where reason can enter. In practical terms, this looks like choosing not to respond immediately to a message designed to provoke. It looks like staying composed in a tense conversation, not because you agree, but because you refuse to abandon your center. It looks like noticing the surge of emotion and not obeying it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that tranquility comes when you stop allowing external things to shape your inner state. When you practice this, something subtle changes. The same triggers arrive, but they land differently. Provocation loses momentum. Attempts to destabilize you fall short. Not because you are indifferent, but because you are anchored. This composure quietly exposes the imbalance of those who rely on emotional reactions. They expected escalation. They encounter calm. They anticipated justification. They meet silence. And in that silence, their influence collapses. This is why emotional mastery is the foundation of Stoic strength. Without it, boundaries fail and principles blur. With it, you no longer react to feel safe. You no longer perform to be understood. You observe, choose, and move forward intact. Emotional mastery is not weakness. It is authority exercised inwardly. Way number 2. Quiet unpredictability. Moving without announcement. In many workplaces, harm does not arrive as open conflict. It arrives as quiet positioning. Colleagues who study your habits. Managers who anticipate your reactions. Environments where being easy to read slowly becomes being easy to use. You may notice that once people know how you respond under pressure, how quickly you explain yourself, or how reliably you overextend, they begin to plan around those patterns. Stoicism teaches that predictability, when unguarded, becomes vulnerability. This does not mean becoming secretive out of fear. It means learning discernment. In practical terms, this often looks like speaking less about your plans and allowing results to speak first. It looks like no longer announcing every intention in meetings, no longer justifying every decision in advance, and no longer signaling your next move to those who have not earned that knowledge. Epictetus reminded his students that we should focus our energy on what is within our control and release concern for what is not. When your direction is constantly broadcast, you invite interference into what should remain governed by your own judgment. Quiet unpredictability restores that control. Consider a common work scenario. You are developing a new idea or preparing for a transition. In the past, you might have shared it openly, seeking alignment or reassurance. But the idea becomes diluted. Opinions multiply. Momentum slows. Doubt enters. Stoic restraint asks a different question. Who truly needs access to this information right now? Often, the answer is fewer people than you think. Seneca warned that many harms come not from enemies, but from careless exposure. In Letters from a Stoic, he speaks of guarding one's inner life carefully, not out of suspicion, but out of self-respect. When you reduce unnecessary disclosure, you reduce unnecessary friction. Your work becomes steadier. Your mind becomes quieter. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that it is possible to act decisively without noise, without theatrics, without announcing one's virtue or intention. This is the essence of quiet unpredictability. You continue to show up. You continue to contribute, but you stop rehearsing your future out loud. The healing aspect of this practice is subtle but powerful. When you no longer feel compelled to explain your every step, your nervous system relaxes. You stop living in anticipation of others' reactions. You reclaim a sense of internal privacy, a space where your efforts can grow undisturbed. This is not withdrawal. It is protection. Over time, those who relied on predicting you lose their leverage. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped being available to manipulation. Your calm progress confuses those who expected transparency to equal access. And in that confusion, you gain freedom. Quiet unpredictability is not deception. It is dignity expressed through restraint. Way 3. Detach from validation. When approval no longer decides you, much of the harm people experience does not come from direct hostility. It comes from something quieter, the slow dependence on how others respond to us. In daily life, this often looks harmless. You feel lighter when praised. smaller when ignored. You replay conversations, wondering how you were perceived. You adjust your tone, your opinions, even your boundaries to preserve acceptance. Over time, this need for validation becomes a fragile point of control. In personal relationships, it may appear as over-explaining your feelings, so you won't be misunderstood. In family dynamics, it may show up as carrying guilt for disappointing expectations that were never truly yours. At work, it often takes the form of tying your sense of worth to feedback, recognition, or visibility. None of this feels manipulative at first. It feels human, but Stoicism asks a difficult and healing question. What happens when your value depends on something you cannot control? Epictetus answered this clearly. In the Enchiridion, he warned that when we place our good in the hands of others, we make ourselves vulnerable by design. Praise and criticism then become levers, not because they are true, but because we allowed them to decide how we feel about ourselves. The cost of this dependence is subtle, but heavy. You hesitate before speaking honestly. You delay decisions until approval arrives. You feel anxious when silence replaces affirmation. Over time, your inner voice grows quieter, while external voices grow louder. And this is where harm finds entry, not through attack, but through permission. Stoicism does not ask you to reject feedback or isolate yourself from others. It asks you to relocate authority. Seneca wrote that the wise person is content with self-approval, not because others are irrelevant, but because their judgment is no longer decisive. When validation becomes optional rather than necessary, emotional manipulation loses its grip. In practice, detaching from validation looks gentle, not dramatic. It looks like doing your work well, even when no one notices immediately. It looks like allowing someone to disagree without rushing to defend your worth. It looks like choosing rest without needing to justify it. Each of these moments rebuilds trust with yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that a person's value is not increased by applause, nor diminished by silence. When you internalize this, something heals. Your nervous system relaxes. Your sense of self stabilizes. You stop scanning the room for permission to exist as you are. Those who once influenced you through approval lose their leverage, not because you hardened, but because you softened inwardly toward yourself. Quietly whole. If this resonates, take a moment to comment below. Quietly whole. And now, let us continue forward toward the next silent Stoic strength, where boundaries are formed not by walls, but by intentional distance. Way 4. Emotional distance. Access is chosen, not owed. Many people confuse emotional distance with rejection. Stoicism makes a quieter distinction. Distance is not the absence of care. It is the presence of discernment. In everyday life, harm often enters not because we are cruel or careless, but because we are too available, too open, too willing to let anyone step into spaces that should be protected. You may recognize this pattern. A friend who unloads their chaos onto you repeatedly, leaving you drained. A family member who crosses emotional lines under the name of closeness. A co-worker who treats your empathy as unlimited access. None of these situations begin with malice. They begin with unguarded generosity. Stoic philosophy does not condemn kindness. It refines it. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what belongs to us and what does not. Our time, attention, and emotional energy are ours to steward. When we surrender them without choice, we give others the power to unsettle us. Emotional distance restores that choice. In practical terms, this might look like listening without absorbing, offering support without becoming responsible for someone else's emotions, ending conversations that turn manipulative without explaining yourself into exhaustion. It can feel uncomfortable at first, especially for those conditioned to equate love with access. But discomfort is not harm, it is adjustment. Consider a workplace example. You are dependable, emotionally intelligent, and always available. Over time, colleagues begin to lean on you for reassurance, conflict mediation, or emotional labor that is not part of your role. Your performance remains strong, but your inner resources thin out. Stoic distance asks you to recalibrate. You remain professional. You remain respectful. But you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic that constant exposure weakens the mind, just as constant noise dulls the ear. Distance, when chosen wisely, restores clarity. It allows you to engage from strength rather than depletion, from presence rather than obligation. The healing power of emotional distance lies in safety. When fewer people have access to your inner world, that world stabilizes. Your nervous system calms. You stop bracing for emotional intrusion. You begin to feel grounded again, not because life is easier, but because your boundaries are clearer. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that tranquility comes from arranging life so that nothing unnecessary disturbs the soul. Emotional distance is one way of arranging that life. It is not withdrawal from humanity. It is protection of what allows you to show up whole. As you practice this, something shifts. Those who relied on emotional closeness to influence, you feel the change. Not because you announced it, but because access quietly narrowed. You did not argue. You did not accuse. You simply chose where your heart is allowed to go. Emotional distance is not coldness. It is care guided by wisdom. And as access becomes intentional, another strength begins to form: the ability to remain silent without defending yourself. Way 5. Silence over defense. Refusing to feed the fire. Not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Yet many people are conditioned to defend themselves immediately, to explain, justify, clarify, and prove. In daily life, this often feels necessary. At work, a rumor circulates. In a relationship, your words are misinterpreted. Online, someone distorts your intent. The impulse to respond rises quickly, fueled by the fear of being seen incorrectly. Stoicism offers a steadier alternative: silence chosen with intention. This silence is not avoidance. It is discernment. It asks a simple but powerful question: will my response restore order or merely feed the disturbance? When defense becomes automatic, it hands importance to what may not deserve it. It turns distraction into center stage. Epictetus taught that we should concern ourselves only with what is truly ours. Reputation, opinions, and rumors live outside our control. When we rush to defend ourselves against every provocation, we attempt to manage what cannot be managed, and in doing so, we surrender inner calm. Consider a workplace example. A colleague subtly questions your competence in a meeting. The room goes quiet. You feel the pressure to explain yourself immediately, to reclaim standing. But Stoic restraint offers another path. You remain composed. You let your work speak over time. You do not argue in the moment. The silence may feel uncomfortable, but it preserves dignity. And dignity, unlike argument, compounds. Seneca warned that many conflicts survive only because they are fed. In On the Shortness of Life, he reminds us that attention is a limited resource. When you pour it into provocation, you extend its lifespan. Silence shortens it. What is not fueled often fades. The healing aspect of this practice is profound. When you stop defending reflexively, your nervous system begins to rest. You are no longer on constant alert, scanning for threats to your image. You allow yourself to be misunderstood temporarily, without collapsing inwardly. This builds resilience, not the kind that hardens, but the kind that stabilizes. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is possible to remain upright without contesting every blow. Silence, in this sense, becomes a mirror. It reflects insecurity back to its source without your participation. Those who relied on reaction find nothing to grasp. Attempts to provoke lose momentum. Over time, something shifts. You begin to recognize which moments require action and which require restraint. You respond when it serves your values, not your ego. You speak when clarity will help, and remain silent when noise would only multiply. Silence over defense does not mean you accept injustice. It means you refuse to exhaust yourself, proving what time will reveal. You choose peace without passivity, strength without spectacle. Silence is not weakness. It is power that does not need to perform. And as you stop feeding the fire of provocation, another strength becomes visible. The ability to stay anchored in purpose when distractions multiply. Way number 6. Stay rooted in purpose. When direction becomes protection, many people are not harmed because they are weak. They are harmed because they are distracted. When your inner direction is unclear, external forces gain influence. Opinions feel louder. Provocations feel personal. Drama feels urgent. In daily life, this often shows up quietly, reacting to comments that do not matter, carrying conflicts that are not yours, or losing hours of energy to situations that pull you away from what truly matters. Stoicism teaches that purpose is not motivation. It is orientation. In the workplace, this is especially visible. You may notice how easily meetings drift into ego, competition, or unspoken power games. When your sense of purpose is fragile, these environments destabilize you. You start chasing recognition instead of contribution. You engage in conflicts that offer no growth. But when your purpose is clear, something changes. You begin to see distractions for what they are: detours. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that a person who knows what they stand for cannot be easily pulled apart by noise. Purpose, in Stoic terms, is alignment with what is meaningful and within your control, your character, your effort, your values. When these are steady, manipulation loses its leverage. Consider a personal example. Someone criticizes your choices or questions your pace. In the past, this might have unsettled you. You might have explained yourself or adjusted your direction to regain approval. But rooted purpose asks a different question. Does this move me closer to the life I am building? If the answer is no, the disturbance loses urgency. You do not need to argue with what does not guide you. Seneca wrote that people waste much of their life reacting to what does not belong to them. Purpose reclaims that life. It turns pain into information rather than identity. It allows betrayal, misunderstanding, or delay to be processed without derailment. When your energy is invested in something larger than momentary emotion, small provocations shrink naturally. The healing effect of purpose is grounding. It reduces internal fragmentation. You stop being pulled in multiple directions at once. Your nervous system settles because it knows where you are going. Not everything requires your attention. Not every battle deserves your energy. Those who once distracted or destabilized, you begin to feel irrelevant, not because they changed, but because your center did. Your path becomes quieter, clearer, stronger. Purpose is not escape. It is commitment to what matters. Before you move on, stay with Stoic path. Do not leave. Yet, the final way completes this inner armor. Because strength without clarity is incomplete, and clarity without memory leaves you exposed. Way number 7. Forgive with memory, peace without amnesia. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Many people believe it requires forgetting, excusing, or reopening access to those who caused harm. Stoicism teaches a quieter, more grounded truth. Forgiveness is not the erasure of memory. It is the release of emotional poison without surrendering wisdom. In everyday life, This confusion causes repeated injury. Someone crosses a line, apologizes lightly, and the cycle resets. A pattern reveals itself, yet hope overrides observation. You forgive quickly, but remain unprotected. Over time, this creates exhaustion, not because forgiveness is wrong, but because it was incomplete. Stoicism does not ask you to carry resentment. It asks you to carry clarity. Epictetus taught that wisdom begins with seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. When someone shows you who they are through repeated behavior, believing them is not cruelty. It is realism. Forgiveness clears the heart. Memory guards the future. Consider a personal example. A friend consistently dismisses your boundaries. Each time, you rationalize their behavior. You forgive, but nothing changes. Stoic forgiveness would look different. You release the anger because it burdens you, but you adjust access. You no longer place yourself in positions where the same wound can be reopened. There is no confrontation, no punishment, just informed distance. Seneca wrote that the wise person is slow to trust, but generous once trust is earned. This balance is healing. It allows compassion without self-betrayal. You stop confusing kindness with self-exposure. You learn that peace is not maintained by enduring harm, but by refusing to internalize it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that other people act according to their nature and understanding. Expecting them to be different without evidence only disturbs your own equilibrium. When you accept this, forgiveness becomes lighter. You stop fighting reality. You stop needing closure from those incapable of giving it. The healing power of forgiving with memory is profound. Your nervous system no longer braces for repetition. Your heart softens without becoming vulnerable to the same blade. You move forward unburdened, but awake. This is not bitterness. It is maturity. Those who once relied on your forgetting lose their influence, not because you hardened, but because you integrated the lesson. You no longer rehearse the past. You simply do not repeat it. Forgiveness frees your inner life. Memory protects your path. When these two work together, something final settles into place. You are no longer reactive, no longer available to manipulation, no longer easy to harm. This is what Stoic strength looks like when it is complete. Stoic strength is rarely loud. It does not announce itself through dominance, confrontation, or the need to win. It does not seek to destroy anyone, expose enemies, or prove superiority. True Stoic strength is quieter and deeper. It is the ability to master your emotions when provocation invites chaos, to move without announcing your plans, to stop borrowing your worth from approval, to choose distance where closeness once caused harm, to remain silent when defense would only drain you, to stay rooted in purpose while distractions compete for your attention, and finally, to forgive without forgetting, releasing the emotional weight while keeping the lesson intact. You do not become strong by overpowering others. You become strong the moment you are no longer controlled by them. When reactions lose their grip, manipulation fades. When clarity replaces noise, peace becomes stable. This is not avoidance. This is inner order. Peace is not avoidance. It is inner order that cannot be disturbed. Take a quiet moment now and reflect. Which silent strength are you practicing right now? If this path resonates with you, comment below, "I choose peace." Let it be a reminder not to the world, but to yourself. And if you are choosing calm over reaction, like this video, if you are building strength quietly and walking the Stoic path with intention, subscribe and continue this journey with us, one disciplined choice at a time.